Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about Dragon's Vanity. I'm Kai from WCC, and originally I was planning to just put everything in Dragon's Vanity into one video, but since we're talking about Narukami, which is the boss of the format at the moment, probably the best deck in the format, I'm devoting this entire video just to Narukami. And look, I've been playing Narukami since its release in Japan because I was there for Worlds, so I've just been playing around with the build a bit. I've really found a build that I really like, so I'll share it with you today and talk about Narukami in Standard. So first off, let's talk about the grade 3s. We are running Dragonic Vanquisher and Jaggy Shot Dragoon. Only 8 cards in grade 3s. I think you don't really need anything else, and this is pretty much the core of this core part of the deck, so let's go into it. Dragonic Vanquisher, during your turn if you've bound at least 3 or more cards, your front row gets 10k. Continuous effect, so anything that just comes in with one of your combo extenders will get the 10k. And the second effect is you can counterblast 1 and bind one of your opponent's front rows. If you have a grade 3 in Soul, both players bind a card from their hand. So sounds like an alright card, but when you combine it with everything else in the deck, this card is pretty amazing. But one of the best support cards it has gotten is Jaggy Shot Dragoon. So with Jaggy Shot, when it attacks, you can bind a card from your hand and then bind one of your opponent's front row rear guards. And if your opponent has no more front row rear guards, you can draw a card. So nice hand filter. That bind sets you up for more extra attacks because your deck has cards that get called out when they get bound from their hand. And then at the end of turn, when Jaggy Shot attacks, if you have a Dragonic Vanquisher Vanguard, you may put it into Soul and draw a card. So amazing filter effect. It just means that you don't need another copy of Dragonic Vanquisher to ride. This card will just make your second effect active, and it's just absolutely amazing. You can just aggro with it and just pop it into Soul. Good times. And then, yeah, the first effect is nice too. Moving on to the grade 2s, we have your Chitura here. One of your first combo extended cards. When it's get bound, you can call it out onto the field, and it gets 10k for that turn. So really good. Hits over triggers, and like with Vanquisher's effect, it'll hit like 33k on like an Excel 2, which is really nice. And then our first effect is that when an attack hits the Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1, you can draw a card, and then bind on your opponent's front row rear guard. So has that on hit pressure too, has that big power, so people are more inclined to guard that. And yeah, just it's overall a great card. The only detriment is that it's 8k instead of 9k, but it's a pretty small price to pay. With all its power boost, it will hit Force Clans pretty well. And then next few slots we have are pretty much flex slots. We're only running 2 Chos because that got restricted, but no biggie compared to what everyone else got hit with. Cho being at 2 is just nothing. Amazing effect still, and nice untargeting removal, which is all good. That's why we're maximizing it at 2. Dragonic Death Scythe, I was at first planning to cut this card, but because Cho got restricted to 2, then I could keep it in. I was planning to replace it with Zuiton, so just dump Zuitons in. But look, if you don't like Death Scythe, just play more Zuitons, and that's fine as well. With Death Scythe, the good thing is that it's just a free bind. Sometimes when you're playing against opponents who just commit a front row or get a free front row, having that extra retire is just pretty good, and one that doesn't require any counterblast at all. So lastly, we're also running Zuiton. Zuiton just overall a nice card. Again, it's got just lets you attack, goes into Soul and draws you another card, so you can guard next turn. And then it also, although you're not running Gauntlet Buster Dragon, it still gets power when you bind stuff, so it will still hit some decent numbers when you combine it with Dragonic Vanquisher's effect. And lastly, we're running Voltec Shred Dragon. This card is just, it helps you extend your combos as well, like Jaggy Shot, but the key thing with this is you draw first and then you bind, so you don't need to already have your extender piece in your hand. You can hopefully just randomly top deck it, and it's good times, right? If you don't hit it, then you just bind something like a draw trigger, and hopefully you've kind of plussed in terms of guard value compared to what you had before. It does require a Soul, but this deck pretty much has no Soul problems since a lot of stuff just goes to Soul anyway, especially your Jaggy Shot, so pretty good. That's your grade 2 lineup. You're running more grade 2s than normal, simply because, yeah, grade 2s are great. Grade 1s, we have 4 Mighty Bolt Dragoon. This is actually a really good card in this deck. You have 2 grade 3s that are actually pretty decent. So the second effect is just alright. If you're missing a Vanquisher, helps you get your Vanquisher. If you want more Jaggy Shots, you can still get more Jaggy Shots. And if you want a second Vanquisher, eating a second Vanquisher is fine. Just means you can re-ride next turn. But the first effect is also like this, one of the freest power boost you can get. Pretty much it's just 13k all the time. So you just put it in front, hits 13, put it back, boost like a 9k for 22. Otherwise, you can just put it behind Vanguard, so you're always pretty much confirming like hitting numbers every turn. Against like especially against like Force Clans. If you're against like Protect and Excel, Vanquisher usually by itself is enough, hitting 22s. Rising Phoenix, we're still running for that because it's another free card. You're discarding, if you have to discard cards, yeah, Phoenix, done. You know, discard for a null, guard with early, comes back later, 11k booster. Yeah, nothing much to say. It's just overall a great card. And lastly, running Vijan. This is another one of your combo extenders. Comes out when it's bound. Unfortunately, it doesn't get power, but it has the other effect that when it comes into play, if you have bound something this turn, you may soul charge one. So you can soul charge something good, like a grade 3. But in this deck, it doesn't really matter anyway because your Jaggy Shot's going to soul. But maybe it just means your first grade 3 turn, you can do something amazing. Other than that, yeah, this is just there for the extra push. Lastly, our trigger lineup, we're running 6 draw, 6 crit, 4 heal. A lot of cool kids are running 8 draw, 4 crit. I still like the 6 crit because just if your opponent's been guarding early or it's been a bit of a heal game going on, the extra crit can just really push you, accelerate that game a bit, and push you into a range where your multi-attacks have become more lethal. I know the VMC winner was running a 7 draw, 5 crit, so really it's up to you. 6-6 to 8-4 is fine. Now let's talk about this deck in general in Standard. This is the best deck in Standard. No, like it doesn't really have any weakness. No bad match. Actually, you might have a bad matchup like against Eve if they guard early and they get to grade 4 and you're just stuck behind a 34k wall when they hit a damage trigger. I mean, that's bad. But I don't think anyone runs Eve because it's not popular except me. So if I'm not in your locals, then yeah, you have no opposition, all right? They're like every other clan, even like Force clans which are supposed to be good against, it doesn't matter, all right? You have a great offense, you have a great defense. Although you don't have Shiryukis, the cards that just replace themselves and the fact that you can be aggressive and destroy your opponent's field while just replacing itself, all those cards going to soul and drawing a card, just means you have great defensive and offensive potential. And the aggression and the oppression from retiring usually just drains your opponent's hand because they have no field. They have to guard your multi-attacks that they don't know how many attacks you're doing. It's like remember when Riviera got restricted, got errated, because the problem is your opponent does not know how many attacks you're gonna do. This is like the same thing. They don't know how many Chitors you have in your hand. They don't know how many Vijans you have in your hand. You could have nothing, but they still have to kind of hope you don't have it. And you can just randomly top deck them from Voltec Shred. So yeah, they don't know how many attacks. They don't have a good idea. Well, they might have a good idea, but it's not like confirmed how many attacks you're going to do. So that's one of the best strengths of this deck. Multi-attacking in Standard, pretty crazy, especially when Dragonic Vanquisher gives your multi-attacks plus 10k. This clan being top dog will probably stay around for quite a while. Force clan like Gear Chronicle is coming out in the next set, which is pretty decent. But look, it's Springfest, right? So you need 3 good clans. Narukami is definitely a good clan for like a while. So one thing that you have to learn is the mirror. And you'll find that there's 2 ways to approach the mirror. One is just to flood your front rows and make sure your opponent can't somehow retire or get rid of your front row. That's kind of hard though, because if you're playing things like Jaggy Shot and Zuiton in the front row, then it will be empty. So you kind of have to know the timing when you're just not committing anything to the front row, and then at times when you're going to put everything to the front row. And that comes down to how much counterblast your opponent has. If he has 0 counterblast, then if you keep him at 0, then you can kind of commit a front row, and it's pretty hard for him to get rid of. He's only got something like a Jaggy Shots to get rid of them and Death Scythes, and if he doesn't run Death Scythes, then you got a good time, and his Jaggy Shots will be very low value. On the other hand, yeah, you just have to know those specific timings. Your Rising Phoenixes become pretty important because you put them in the back. It's pretty hard for them to push it out front. So one interesting tech that I've seen people run is things like a Thunderbreak Dragon, which gives this deck a bit more moving options, and you just probably replace like a Death Scythe for some Thunderbreak Dragons. Some people like to play Gauntlet Buster. I don't think it's needed. It's just not that great, in my opinion. And yeah, that's about it. Deck's awesome, guys. Deck's awesome. One thing is, you don't have to YOLO too hard. I know like when you have a lot of these extra attacks you can do. You go like, wow, I can replace over all my cards this turn and just, you know, try and do as many multi-attacks. You can technically play it slower. I've seen both sides of the spectrum. You can YOLO really hard, or you can play very conservatively. You can just treat like the Jaggy shot when you bind something. You don't have to always call over something. You can just call the Jaggy shot and then fill out your last column or your last circle on the attack, and then just call out a Chittura. So you can play like a very conservative turn, and then later on when you've ramped up, when you've pushed your opponent high, then you just kind of slam the cards over your cards and replace them, and then try and get those big multi-attacks and kill your opponent. So you can play smartly, or you can play very dumbly. Either way is kind of okay. Just maybe with the not so smart version, you just hope your opponent doesn't get triggers, but otherwise, that's how Vanguard works. So hope your opponent doesn't get any damage triggers, and see you guys in the next video, which should be about Shadow Paladin and Aquaforce. All right, bye.